Nirgudkar. I'm the CEO of Patient Prism, and I am welcoming all of you guys again to one of our webinars. And we've been talking to many consultants and practitioners around the industry about how to really navigate this COVID-19 crisis. And today we have with us our good friend, Colleen Huff. She's been a friend of Patient Prism for a long time. When I was one of the first ones that recorded with us, and she is a dental insurance expert. And she has helped over the last 20 plus years, help dental practices across the country really navigate the insurance, the insurance regarding, obviously dental insurance issues. And obviously she started her career with MetLife Dental and then moved on to the coaching arena. And, the crisis, the pandemic has kind of, brought about many issues that practices should have been thinking about. And in light of this pandemic, we're also thinking about what we should be doing with respect to our insurance participation, our insurance reimbursements. All that stuff comes into light because the new normal is going to be there for at least a good year or two, maybe. And we're going to have to do more with less. And we need to make sure that every aspect of our dental practice is completely optimized so that we are back to where we were supposed to be. So with that in mind, welcome Colleen Huff. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Amol. I'm really happy to be here. Yeah, like you said, I've known you for a while and watched Patient Prism grow too. It's really been nice to see.
Thank you. My first question to you right off the bat is, what should dental offices be thinking about as it relates to insurance participation in this environment?
So what I think I'm seeing, and when I know what I'm hearing from a lot of the offices, they're really starting to look at their contracts more in depth of what they've been part of. I know a lot of offices are talking about getting out of network because of, the fees that they pay and, what they're getting paid for, what they can't charge a patient. And I like to caution people to be careful that you don't jump at something too quickly. There's nothing, fee-for-service practices can do fabulous with the right understanding of the insurances and how they work. But I'm telling people to be careful. And there's others that are doing the opposite. They want to jump in to the insurances because they think it's going to build their practice. And you have to really make sure you're analyzing your data. So knowing if you get out of network with an insurance company, who is it affecting? The other thing to be aware of that a lot of offices don't realize, because I'm hearing a lot of saying, I'm just going to get out, I'm done. There's a type of plan out there that's hit the market in the last couple of years called an EPO, which is essential provider option. And what that means is, for example, Delta has it. And if you are not a PPO provider, they pay nothing to the out-of-network. And that is growing. And I caution the fee-for-service practices because it's a big difference from saying, hey, you know what, we're not in network with your practice, but we're going to get X amount from the insurance to help cover this, to we're not in network, so we can't get anything. And the EPO part of it is growing. MetLife has come out with one around the country. Delta, Cigna, Guardian has a few. And so it's becoming a trend. So you have to make sure and know if that's hit your area before you go out of network. I think it's going to be a bigger push from the insurance company side on these because it's going to be a cost cutting. So I caution people, know your plans that are being offered in your area. And you can find out some of that just from your provider reps. You can reach out to them and say, can you tell me if this is being offered? Is this something that they're starting to sell? And that's something you do August or September before you jump out of network and when they know what they're selling.
Because you have that 90-day period, right?
You usually have a 90-day to get out. And also that's when they're starting to sell. They've decided in May what they're going to present and sell to the HR companies. They start doing the selling around that time. So they're going to know by then what's being picked up if a big company in your area decided to go to an EPO. So those are things to be careful of because that plan, I think, is going to become more popular. And I hate to see it happen because it really makes that fee-for-service office harder on them. Not to say they can't still do it, because you can. But you just, as a fee-for-service practice, you still have to know insurances, even though you think you don't. a lot of them.
And what I'm thinking more about is as this pent-up demand is growing in dentistry because of the offices being closed down, we're going to have a lot of new patients that are going to be calling
Mhm.
us during this time period who have
Yeah,
not been able to get into their regular dental offices, and then we may or may not have our insurance coordinators back, or people,
right,
or we may have had a furlough or whatever that might be, and all of a sudden we don't know, and we're
right.
seeing, and all of a sudden we won't get any paid anything. So it's super important at this moment. That's what I'm hearing from you, is to really look at the data,
Mhm.
evaluate what you've got, especially in light of this demand that's going to come in.
Yeah,
So you don't waste a lot of money. And if you're not part of the EPO, then maybe you need to be part of it, whatever
right,
that is. You need, and it's hard to do this at home because insurance regulations, just like tax regulations, are very complex.
right.
And just the fact that you said two or three things right now makes me think that, oh my goodness, have people been thinking about this, especially now more than ever. The question I have to follow up that question is it a good time now? So there are a couple of things happening. Number one, we have higher costs of running our
Mhm.
practice because of PPE and some other things that we've had to do for infection control. Our cost of providing care has gone up a little bit. Now our insurance rates, we don't know. I mean, they're still the same. And so is it a good time right now to renegotiate rates?
I think it's not a bad time to try it. You have to see if you've renegotiated in the last few years. Many of the insurance companies have a limit of how often they'll renegotiate. Some don't renegotiate at all. Um, so I would certainly encourage, if you can find the time, it can't hurt, because worst thing is you ask and they say no. Um, One of the things that I was hearing a little bit about, and I have not had it solidified, is they may be suspending some of that right now while they're dealing with other things, but I don't know for sure. So I would say, if you have downtime right now, or your insurance coordinator has the time to do it, but do it again systematically. Do one at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself, because sometimes they jump into it and they're like, oh, I'm going to get it all done. And you have to do it. I'm a big believer in, you can't move quickly sometimes with these things. And everybody, doctors want it done overnight sometimes. No offense to any dentist listening. Um, but these processes are longer than people realize. And the other thing that's happening is some of these insurance companies still have those people maybe furloughed. So they may not be doing it. I'm working with an office that's opening a brand new clinic, and we hit a real roadblock because the credentialing changed. They didn't have as many people working on it. They furloughed half of that. So reach out and find out if they even have the people there that handle that part of it are back first before you even start with the process.
I was talking to Christine Taxon yesterday, and she does a lot of medical stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting. She was telling me that on the medical side, insurance reimburses for PPE, apparently,
Mm-hmm.
lies. We don't have that on the dental side, right?
Well, actually, I have. We're starting to. So what's happened is there's a wide variety of the insurance companies out there that are starting to pay for it. Some are paying for it for a short time.
Okay.
I have a spreadsheet that I've actually started with Laura Hatch at Front Office Rocks, and it's on my Facebook page. It's on Front Office Rocks page that we're updating it daily. So some of them are covering it without a code, and they're just doing lump sums. But you
Okay.
have to be in network. There's different rules. Some are paying it. You have to send it with the code that the ADA came up with, which is the D1999. But because it's a miscellaneous code, you still have to send a narrative. Um,
Interesting.
go to my spreadsheet is all I can tell you, because I'm trying to weed through it and put those different things. Some are paying it for 2 months. Some are paying it till the end of August. Some are paying it till the end of the year. I think we're going to see a trend towards this. But the other thing to be aware of is many of your contracts have it just specifically in there that you cannot charge for infection control. So I'm hearing, oh, I'm charging the patient anyways. If you
$3,
get
yeah.
audited and it's in your contract, you've breached your contract. The other thing, and Christine and I just talked the other day, there's going to be a lot more audits in the next year. So don't think you'll never get caught. Um, I know for a fact from some of the reps I've talked to, the insurance companies are going to be auditing those that saw people during the shutdown and making sure that the work they did fell within the guidelines. So,
Right. So if you did see, so would an insurance company deny a claim if you saw non-emergency patients during that period? They could.
yes, and they can. And actually, most of them stated that on their websites. They put a disclaimer out there on the website stating that if the work didn't fall within the CDC guidelines of what's considered an emergency. So, for example, I talked to a friend whose office was kind of ignoring some of it, and they were placing implants, and he was trying to call it an emergency. And, the tooth being pulled might have been an emergency, but the implant part of it
Right.
isn't. So, yes, and they do, if they have the right because of the way the rules were set down.
And then even if you didn't get reimbursement, usually implants, there's not a lot going on there. It's still, you're violating the terms of the
Right.
contract and the agreement. And I've noticed this over the years is that dentists so often will, obviously nobody reads the big contract, right? Nobody understands it. And
Yeah.
then you end up doing things that you think are logically okay to do.
Yeah.
One example comes into mind is that does every do you bill for an abutment for every crown that happens, and then there's some people who will just do it blanket, and that's
Right.
not right. So there's
Right.
so many things that you could get in trouble for,
Yeah.
and having those having that understanding on a continuous basis through continuous training is so important. But the PPE issue is really important. I think we're going to direct our audience to the PPE spreadsheet that you have,
Sure.
because you're right. If you're charging $10, $20 for a PPE, and it's basically could get you kicked out and have fines, you don't want that happening.
Well, and the example that we both know Roy Shelburne. I mean, you can go to jail for these things. And
Right.
one of the things I learned when I worked at MetLife, I was only there for 6 months. I was in training for 3. We were only really
Right.
processing claims for probably about 3.5 months of that. In that time, when you would hit to process, errors would come up and you had to look at a screen that maybe told you what was going on. I saw enough doctors in that short time that said, under investigation, all payments held up, to
Wow.
really impact me. And then when I went into the offices, I had these doctors going, "Oh, nobody gets caught. Nobody gets caught." I'm like, they do.
Wow.
And even if they're being investigated, one of the things doctors don't realize is if you get caught from an audit and they decide to freeze your payments until they determine what they're doing with you, they all talk to each other. So
Right.
now Delta, Cigna, MetLife, Aetna, all of them, and then they all freeze they can freeze your payments while they investigate. Now you have no cash flow. And so it's not worth it for those minor things. And that's what makes me nervous for doctors is, even prep and seat date. Well, it doesn't really matter. It does. It's a contract that you signed.
And an ignorance of the law is never an excuse.
That's
And
right.
and the second thing is, and just because you think you're not going to get caught, that's not the compass that anybody should be living by.
No,
It doesn't
no,
matter. The law is the law, rules are rules. And whether you like them or not, whether you think they're fair or not, whether you think they're logical or not, you still have to follow them, period.
right,
And there's
right.
no, but I do love the fact that we can get reimbursed for PPE. And I think
Yeah.
it's great. So let's switch gears a little bit on some of the analysis you do when you go into
Mhm.
office, and what does that entail, and why is it important to maybe conduct that analysis right now? You call it the insurance analysis. What does that involve? Why should you do it? Why should you do it now?
So there's a couple of steps of what you do. The first thing you want to do is determine what are your top 20 codes that you bill. And so your practice management software will have typically a report you can run. You then want to also run an analysis of your insurance companies and determine, number one, who do you utilize the most? Who do you have the most patients from? And then who are you losing the most money from? So you might run so within like EagleSoft, there's a report called the Managed Care Analysis Report. And it's not about managed care, it's just the report name. And it gives you a breakdown of what you would have charged for full fee and then what you write off for that insurance company. So you want to analyze that work. And then you also want to run a report that shows you how many patients are coming to you from that insurance. And then from there, you want to look at, okay, so which is my top ones? I'm looking at, let's say, okay, so from, say, Delta, I've got the most patients coming in the door from my Delta PPO. So I want to renegotiate that because of how much I'm losing, and that's the largest number. This is a very numbers driven and somewhat tedious for some people report and things that you have to do. But if you do it the wrong way, you're just going to waste time on something that's not really going to have a bigger ROI, return on investment, for you.
Right.
So you really want to analyze what codes are you using, where are you losing the most money, and who are you losing it to, and talk to them first. But again, if you only have 3 patients on a plan and you're only seeing, maybe 30 from a certain group, you don't waste your time on that one. Look at the ones that have hundreds first.
Correct. Exactly. I mean, I think, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And the thing is, I've seen over the years in my visiting dental offices and my just conversation with doctors or insurance coordinators about insurance, is that sometimes they just don't know how to bill correctly,
Right.
and how to put those codes together so that you get the quickest and the maximum reimbursement. And people are so used to their habits, right? They just keep doing it the way they have been doing it for years and years and years, and things have changed over the years. So the analysis basically goes into looking at all the different providers, looking at all the carriers, looking at what they're reimbursing you, looking where the most opportunity is,
Mm-hmm.
and then figuring out where we should renegotiate, what we should drop off,
Right.
and also if there is any optimization within the current process that you could do that could give you maybe a higher number. Because it depends, right? The rates aren't they different from state to state, county to county? All these things are different.
They're different by zip code. They're different by your area. So one of the biggest things in every contract will state you're not allowed to share your fee schedule with others. And the reason for that is you may have negotiated better than the gentleman who's next to you. The other reason is the bigger companies sometimes can renegotiate, the bigger insurances or employers, the DSOs and some of those can negotiate a higher rate, and they don't want you necessarily to know that. The other thing that may happen as you were speaking that came to me is we have offices that are closing, like you said. So, Dr. Smith down the street used to take your insurance too. Now you may be the only one in a certain area, especially if you're in a rural area. So you may have a really good negotiation point from that, that allows you to get them to listen for that negotiation. So you have to be aware of your surroundings. We tend to be in our little office and not think outside of it. One of the best negotiations I had happen was United Healthcare was trying to get a contract at the University of Buffalo, and we are a mile down the road, and we have a lot of patients that come to us. So they came to me and said, we want you on board, because they needed to sell that they had dentists on board, and I negotiated a fabulous rate. And and then we went back and forth probably 3 times, because they'd come back and I go, nope, that's not high enough. So, and the other thing when you do it is you have to know what is your bottom number. Like what is the least amount that you were willing to settle on? You have to have that ahead of time. Don't go into it without knowing what you're trying to make your end result.
No, that's a great point. In that thought in mind, I have an interesting question. I know of a gentleman in Texas, and I wouldn't obviously disclose for confidentiality reasons, but what he's done, he's got 7 offices, and he's really used the insurance, his relationships with insurance companies to acquire new patients.
Mm-hmm.
So he does do joint events at nursing homes and to bring in, so the insurance company kind of sponsors that, or I don't know what the rules are about that, but as of knowing what's going on in your area, and then partnering with the insurance companies to not only just negotiate better rates, but to acquire patients. What is that? I mean, I'm curious what that, how that's involved and what's involved in that.
Well, so it's funny that you said that because our office has done that a couple of times, but not that we went to them, they came to us. The doctor that I work for is very well known in the area. She's very well respected. So, for example, Medicare managed care plans for the seniors, they really want dentists on those plans. So they sponsored an event when it was during their sign up, and we got to go to an open house.
Right.
And my doctor presented for a half an hour on what seniors are looking for.
Right.
So that might be a way to look at it and a place to start. If you have, so in my area, independent health is big for the Medicaid managed care plans for the seniors. They
Right.
throw events. They want people to sign up. So you could reach out to those people and say, hey, are you doing any health fairs? Can I have a table? Could my doctor speak? And the best part was I got to help, like I was there also. So you want your insurance coordinator there because your doctor knows dental, they don't know insurance.
Correct.
And
Correct.
I had a lot of conversations with patients on how you analyze your insurance. What are you looking for when you decide? And we actually have, I wrote up a letter that we put out and we can hand out to the patients on how to decide on these things. So that's another way you can help your patients. The seniors don't know what they're looking at, so you need to pay attention ahead of time of what's being offered so that they know. Do they need just preventive? Is that the best way? Is it worth it for them to spend extra money every month to have one that covers more? And that health fair, we've done that a couple of times, and it's really been, it's funny. A lot of times we see our own patients,
Right.
but we've acquired some from that. And if nothing else, your name is there. So it might be a year before you see some of it, but they'll remember that you were there
Right.
and that they met you.
That's an interesting point because I think doctors and dental offices are right now really trying to figure out how to fill up their schedule and new ways to acquire patients. And this could be another way that
Mm-hmm.
be done. Obviously we could talk about this a lot. This is such a vast topic, but
Yeah.
I do want our audience to contact you and really ask you these questions because there's so many aspects to this insurance navigating this insurance issues that you can't possibly even because everything is unique to the area, the county, the zip
Yep.
code, and then what you've done before, and then there is new considerations given COVID-19 of
Right.
what you're doing, including the PPE stuff, which I
Yeah.
can't stop thinking about it, and the EPO, whether you need to participate in because
Yeah.
you want to get not paid. So what's the best way for people to reach you, Colleen? And we're going to put this up on the screen right now.
Okay. So there's, I have a Facebook page, which is Colleen Huff Dental Insurance Coach. I have a website, ColleenHuff.com or DentalInsuranceCoach.com. And you can email me at DentalInsuranceCoach@gmail.com.
Okay.
So, reach out any of the ways. I do my best to get back to people as quickly as possible. I am still active in a practice once we're open again. But so right now we're not open yet. So I'm only there a little bit, but I do my best to get back to people as quickly as possible. And if I don't know the answer, I'll reach out to someone or at least try and help guide you where to look for it. It's impossible to know it all. And I tell anybody, if you're going to be an insurance coordinator, you have to be willing to continue to educate. We mentioned Teresa Duncan and Roy. I reach out to those guys all the time. They reach out to me. We compare notes.
Right.
I have friends around the country who will send me things that they're seeing because, again, my little neck of the woods is different than Texas and California and Florida. Even one county over or two counties over can be different.
I've said this all along, and I talk to a lot of dental practices and DSOs across the country, and the guys that are really have gotten back to almost 60, 70, 80% of production beforehand. They've spent a lot of time during this period to really figure out their processes around everything, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
phone calls, whether it's case presentation, and insurance is a big part of it as well.
Yep.
And this is the time to do it because you have some downtime and maybe not. I mean, practices are starting back at a record pace, but
Yep.
this is the time to kind of figure all this stuff out. And Colleen does both. She does online training, she does in-office training, and she'll actually get her hands dirty in your
Yep.
insurance stuff if you have things that you need to clean up, which actually you enjoy doing that. Most people don't.
I'm a little bit different that way.
And
It's for me, it's It's that satisfaction of going from, a 40-page report down to 3.
Right.
I like that. And I also like the mystery of it. Sometimes insurances are a mystery. I always date myself when I say I wanted to be Nancy Drew when I grew up.
Right.
So those that know what I mean, you're as old as I am. But so you have to be aware and be willing to do that extra thing. One thing I just want to mention real quick before we finish is to make sure also that when you get back, make sure you're checking your eligibility and keeping a record of it. Because a lot of the HR companies have been out, or the HR people, and I think there's going to be a backdating happening with that.
Interesting. So eligibility protocols, I think they're going to be impacted with COVID.
Very important, yeah.
You want to be able to check all that stuff and not just assume whatever was there in February is now.
Right.
And then because a lot of people got off insurance and got furloughed or laid off, and we don't know what happened with them. So this might be another time to spend to kind of get those things back up to date in your system. No, really, really good points. I mean, my goodness, we've covered at least 25 tips that
yeah.
the last 25 minutes. Almost every minute was something that you could. So you can imagine, I think everybody who's listening to it, you right now can imagine the wealth of knowledge and information you have and the practical tips, because you've been on the front lines helping
a long time.
navigate this, and you've kept up with all this, all the regulations across all the different insurance companies. I encourage every one of you guys to call and contact her, email her, go to her website, look at the spreadsheet. We're going to put a link for that so that you guys can check what's happening with that PPE spreadsheet. And I really want to thank you, Colleen. We are looking forward to this pandemic being over. We're looking forward to them being back again. I think it is coming back with a vengeance, and I'm so glad to see it. And people like you are going to help it come back even faster. So thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.